Hey everyone, making another video using the necrophonic, but before I do, I want to tell you about an experience I had in church. Now, I had a really weird dream last night involving, what's his name, from, the Full Monty. Probably the really old one with, is it Robert Carlyle? The really skinny guy from Scotland, I think it is. Anyway, he was in my dream. Sometimes I was him, and other times I was looking at him and just going on this mass murder spread of just killing all these people and then being on the run. It was really freaky. So I woke up like that, sick, and then I remembered whilst I was sat on the toilet this experience that I had when I was back in the UK, and it made me think about it because I was all creeped out from this dream, and it made me suddenly remember this experience that I had. And now I don't go to church. I haven't done since I was a really young child, like before my teens. And but my younger sister does. And so I was visiting back in the UK, and my niece, my younger sister's daughter, was singing in the choir at church. And she'd asked if I would go, and I was a bit like, well, okay, I'll go, to see little Emma singing. And so we'd sat through the mass, and I was thoroughly bored. I'm sorry if you're Catholic and go to church. I mean, no disrespect, but it got to the time where you stand up and you walk down to get the bread and the wine. And I was stood in front of my sister, and I'd forgotten what you had to do once you got to the priest at the front. So I turned around and I just said, "What do you do? What do you do?" And she said, "Just like this, just put your hands out like this." So I thought, right, okay. So got to the front, and the priest was there, and then there was this woman. And so the priest had the wine, and the woman had the little bread, the body of Christ, the little bread slices. And I just stood there with my hands out like this, and I just looked up at her. And she said, what did she say? The body of Christ, something, I can't remember. And I didn't say anything, I just looked at her. And she just looked utterly confused. Like she was just getting all sort of flustered and confused. And then she instead of putting the bread, the little circle bread in my hands, she put her hand on my shoulder and said, "God bless you." And at that point I was like, what is this supposed to happen? I was like, what's going on? So I still had my hands like this, and I just sort of gestured for her to put this bread in my hands. And after about what felt like ages, because there's a queue of people behind me, and at this point I was getting a bit embarrassed. Eventually she did put it in my hand. And because I was so embarrassed, I just sort of quickly darted off with this still in my hand. And so what are they? The stools, benches are here, and you walk in front of the front one, and then you come down the aisle back to your seat. We were sat right at the back. So I got right round the pew or pillar or whatever it's called, walked round. I still had this bread in my hand. And this guy, out of bloody nowhere, that was sat probably a few benches in front of us, stood up, stopped me in my tracks, and took the bread out of my hand and said, "Oh, don't worry about it, that's the body of Christ," and sat back down with it. And I was like, what on earth? And he stood back up and he gave me it back. And at this point, my mind was just blown. I was like, I have literally no clue what is going on right now. My sister's behind me looking in sheer, disarray as to what she's actually seeing. So he puts this bread back in my hand after he's announced that it's the body of Christ, and I was like, yeah, I know. And then I'm thinking, ooh, this guy's hand's been on it, but anyway. So I sat down at my bench, and again, this guy is already sat where he sat. And I was about to put it in my mouth. No, in fact, I did put it in my mouth. I just sort of put it in my mouth. And this guy turned around and said, I'll just take that. So I was like, who is this guy and what the deuce is going on? So I kind of took it out my mouth, and he said, don't worry about it, it's the body of Christ. So I'll just take it. So out of just to try and, because I felt like 1,000 eyes were on me at that time, because it was causing a bit of, a scene. So I gave him the bread, and he turned around, and I can't remember what he did with it. And then my sister came and sat next to me, and saw the whole thing. And she was like, only you. And I was like, what? And I said, what just happened? What the hell was that? Sorry, I shouldn't say hell when I'm talking about church. But I was like, what on earth's just happened? And so I was there with my dad, because my dad was the Catholic of the family. And my dad sat down and he was like, what's going on? And I told him, I said, well, this guy's just taken that bit of bread from me. And I pointed him out. And my dad was like, why did he do that? And I said, well, I don't know. I literally was lost for words. I was like, I cannot believe what's going on right now. First of all, this woman, being all confused around me and putting a hand on my shoulder instead of just simply putting it in my hand like she was with everybody else. Everybody in front of me was just hand, bread, off they go. But with me, it was all this kind of pausing and staring at me unknowingly, and I was like, So my after a bit of sort of, we all calmed down and the mass was obviously coming to an end, my sister said, God, you're so socially awkward. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I did what you told me to do and just put my hands out. I physically didn't say anything. For her to look so confused and, go on the way she did. And then for this random dude to take it from me. So anyway, the mass had finished, and my little niece who'd been singing in the choir joined us. And my dad walked over to the priest and explained what had happened. And then after that, I went out. I literally left the building because at that point, I was just humiliated and utterly confused about what on earth had just happened. and I think my sister was still with my dad. And my dad had waited until the very end, until everybody had gone out, and found this guy. And I don't know why, but they were in the queue where the middle aisle. They were stood there. My dad was arguing with this guy, being like, what the heck, and getting really aggressive. And my younger sister was intervening and trying to like separate them, and the priest got involved. And my dad ended up having to go back a few days later and apologise to the priest for his behaviour. And that was pretty much it. But has anybody ever had that happen to them? Like, it was so strange. Like, granted, that was the first time I'd stepped foot in a church for a very, very long time. But I kind of like, after that experience, I was like, what on earth was that about? Like, that is something out of a movie or, a book or something. Like, you just could not imagine that happening. But my sister says that these sort of really out of the ordinary things happen to me all the time, and that's why she was like, only you, that this could have happened to. So that was that. So then I kind of afterwards was thinking, oh God, like, do I need to be blessed or something? Was I like repelling the church and the mass and everything that was going on? And it was just really scary. But anyway, if anybody has any views or comments about that situation, let me know. I'm going to do a necrophonic, but I'll do it in the next video.